Hello. What's up, Singapore? How you doing? You doing well? Yes. Very happy to be back. There's an interesting connection between Singapore and my career and Reddit. Not a lot of folks may know. This was like 2003, summer of my junior year of college at the University of Virginia. One of my professors, a guy named Professor Mark White, asked me if I wanted to go to Singapore for 2 weeks, all expenses paid, to compete with some other UVA students on behalf of the University of Virginia at a technopreneurship conference hosted by the National University of Singapore. Now, this time I had been working all spring to get an internship with a PR firm called Ogilvy in New York. And I got that internship, and I was so hyped. I was going to spend the whole summer in New York. I was really looking forward to this. And then my professor offered me 2 weeks with a per diem, in fact, of a paid trip to Singapore. And I said, you know what? Screw this internship. I'm going to Singapore. I'd never been to Singapore before. It was actually my first, second trip to Asia. But I thought, all right, why not? It's going to be fun. Have a good time. So I show up here. We got assigned different teams. My team actually was a bunch of NUS students that kind of actually split me off from the UVA kids, which is kind of cool. And they handed us a patent. And we were supposed to innovate on it and like a week later do a presentation. Now, it turned out the patent they gave us was actually invalid or outdated or some combination of both, basically rendering our assignment worthless. So they just, we realized we weren't gonna succeed at this little project. I didn't have a grade riding on it, which was cool. I don't know, these NUS students probably did. But they just decided, look, this is a dead-end assignment. We're not gonna have any success here. Let's just spend the whole week touring around Singapore. So I had this amazing time. They took me everywhere. I ate everything, night markets. It was great. I still don't understand why at like 2 in the morning, you just got entire families coming out, enjoying amazing food. And then somehow everyone's still getting up in the morning the next day bright and early to go to work. It is one of the many amazing miracles that is Singapore life. And it was actually on my second night there that I was out with this professor. We were having a few drinks, and I pitched him on this idea. Now, it wasn't Reddit. This was a precursor to Reddit. It was called My Mobile Menu, or and it was going to let people skip lines. Again, this is like 2003. You never have to wait in line again, because when you're a few blocks from the Starbucks, you just take out your phone. Well, there's no iPhone back then. This is 2003, right? It's before the iPhone. So you'd like text the Frappuccino order, and then walk into the Starbucks. You're like, hey, I'm Alexis. And then give you your thing, and you'd walk out. We thought it was going to change the world. And he was the first person that I had pitched outside of my family. And he actually said that wasn't a terrible idea. He was actually like, you know what? I hear this stuff a lot from students. I actually think you've got a shot. You and your buddy Steve really should do it. And I don't know if the alcohol had gotten to him, maybe the jet lag, but it really meant something to me. And for the rest of that week, I was sitting in an auditorium like this, hearing from these speakers at this technopreneurship forum in US. And I kept coming back to it. I kept in the margins of my notes, I kept drafting ideas and things and motivating myself and thinking, hey, you know what, actually we can do this. And I wrote this now infamous email. You can Google it. I recently posted it actually on my Reddit profile. I wrote this email to Steve, and I say infamous because I use the word bro like 6 times, which I never do. I swear I never do in real life. But it was this email that basically said, look, we can do this. And it was the email that kicked off our work on which a year later we would be pitching to Y Combinator, the first ever class of Y Combinator. And they actually really loved the idea, or that's what we thought, and then they rejected us, which sucked. And when we were heading back to university, rejected, founder Paul Graham had given us a call, and I got excited again. I was like, wait, what? He's calling us back. And I pick up the phone, and I was like, hello, Paul. Imagine this. And he said, you know what? We still don't like your idea. It's like, you called just to say that? Who does that? And he's like, no. I mean, we don't like your idea, but we like you two. And if you two just forget this whole thing, it's too early for mobile, you don't want to work with restaurants. If you work on something in a browser, not a phone, that solves your problem every morning, we'll fund you. No questions asked. It was a $12,000 check back then. And we immediately hung up the phone, talked about it for half a second, called him back. We waited a few minutes so it didn't sound too desperate. And said, yeah, we're in. We got off at the next train stop, went back to Boston, took Paul's money, and basically started working on Reddit. And yeah, now 12 years later, Reddit is the fourth most trafficked site in the US and ninth in the world, according to Alexa. Little asterisk there. But it's far exceeded our humble expectations from 12 years ago. And it all really started because I was sitting in an auditorium at the National University of Singapore and had a bunch of people telling me that I could start a company. So it's also kind of fitting that we were Initialized Capital, my seed stage venture fund. We're actually among the first seed investors in General Assembly. So back in 2011, I was meeting with those founders in New York. We handed them a check, and it's been amazing to watch General Assembly grow worldwide. Because obviously entrepreneurship is not just limited to a zip code in Silicon Valley. Entrepreneurship is everywhere. And it's pretty awesome to think that I'm here back in Singapore over a decade later, speaking to an organization that because of this trip to Singapore, I was able to invest in, and that has now proliferated to spread these ideas. And it's really cool. And I'm grateful that all of you came out. And I want to make sure, above all, that if I don't answer questions in the time that we have here today, that you guys feel free to reach out to me on Reddit, Twitter. You can find me, just Google away. And if you actually want to apply, we tend to not do investing outside of US or at least North America region stuff because we want to invest in things we know, and unfortunately we don't have the bandwidth to try to really understand markets that are outside of North America. But that said, you guys can go to a special apply.initialized.com/GA Singapore and use the code GA Singapore if you want to apply and pitch us your idea to talk about funding. So I want to get into the meat of it, so let's start the Q&A. Bring up a round of applause. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Super excited to have you here. So I'm going to start off with a few questions first, and then we're going to be doing a rapid fire round with you. Okay?
All right.
Okay, so let's start first. So, there are a lot of forums out there, but there's nothing as massively popular as Reddit. Tell us why you think that is.
I don't know. We managed to get a few things right early on that mattered. Steve and I, we sold the company in 2006, and we left in 2009, and then we only came back about 2 years ago full time. So there was a hiatus where nothing really changed on Reddit product-wise, but it just kept growing. And that, to me, was a really strong indication that we got a few key things right. The biggest of which was we deliberately built a platform for, hopefully back then, but now, in fact, hundreds of thousands or lots of communities. Whatever your hobby, whatever your passion, there is a community on Reddit for it. And if there isn't, you can make one. It takes like 2 seconds. And the openness of that platform is what I think ultimately helped us beat former competitors like Dig. And then when it comes to just forums in general, like this is in a lot of ways a remix of traditional web forums, which are as old as the internet. But we did an exceptional job around the commenting system, and that's credit to Steve. The sorting algorithms and the voting seem pretty simple, and they're all open source. You can take a look at the Reddit comment sorting algorithm, it's all there. But it's telling because we're at a time when most sites, certainly in the US, and I assume worldwide, are curbing comments. Every news website in the US is shutting off their comments because they're so bad. And you don't have to look too far on social media to find a bunch of really antisocial commenters on every single platform. And I think it's just in part because the commenting system doesn't support hundreds of thousands of people having even remotely interesting conversation. And it seems simple, right? Hotness algorithms, some upvotes and downvotes, but I think that's what made a lot of difference.
So speaking of community and the culture around the community, when you and Steve first started Reddit, how do you get your first wave of community? And did you try to build a culture around it? Were you like, hey, this is how I want these people to be?
It was, so in '05, there was no social media to speak of. Facebook was there, but it was still colleges. This is before Twitter, Instagram, obviously, Snapchat, obviously. And for our earliest users, this is not going to sound right, but we basically faked our first users by submitting under different usernames. Now, we didn't have comments.
Like, how many of those did you do?
For the first few weeks of Reddit, I'd say 99% of submissions were either me or Steve under different usernames. And we didn't have comments back then, so it's not like I would post something as myself and then chime in and be like, great post, Alexis. It wasn't that
You
bad.
just gave yourself a thumbs up.
Yeah,
or like
maybe
an
I'd give myself an upvote, but
Okay.
it wasn't that bad. But it was important because this was a novel thing. We wanted new users who came upon it to realize it wasn't just an ugly blog by two people. And '05, if you had stumbled on it, maybe that's what you would have thought. But we wanted them to know that this was a place for community where you could have countless people participating. And we were good. We tried to be good party hosts with the first community. Back then it was just a general sort of potpourri of content, politics, science, geeky stuff, sports. It was just everything. And it wasn't until we rolled out user-created communities or subreddits a few years later that we really saw the proliferation, because we now had enough users to support all these different communities. But community building still actually is mostly art, and it's becoming more of a science. And we're just starting to understand the data behind what makes community successful on Reddit. We have over 100,000 exist on the platform now, and we're really trying to unlock what is the tipping point for it to become self-sufficient. I don't think there are many mods today who post under different usernames to make it look like there are more users, because there's enough.
Do you have more than one
enough
username
on
on
the platform.
Reddit?
I think most people do.
So what's your
I
other
do.
username other than your most popular
Why
one?
would I tell you that? Why would I? No, that's not how it works. This is not going to be some kind of expose. I will not
Okay.
let you know. Actually, okay, it's Spez. That's my fake account. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that just with Singapore.
No.
I won't go outside of this auditorium. So you guys are massive now. What are your favorite stories of impact? I love the story of Mr. Splashy Pants.
Oh,
What are some of your favorite stories?
Splashy's great. Well, there for every major headline, for every major miracle, really, like Place. I don't know how many all participated in Place, the April Fool's Day experiment. One of you, awesome, thank you. Two of you, I'll take it. It was over 1.4 million people participated. Lizzie, is that right? Yeah, 1.4 million people participated in the world's largest crowdsourced art project. Only on Reddit could this happen, and we gave them a blank canvas, 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, and said you may paint a single pixel, whatever color you like, once every hour. Once every hour. Now, what would you think would happen, right? Chaos. Nothing good could come of that, right? Well, in fact, a few days later, what came out of it was an amazing, amazing crowdsourced work of art. And check out the blog posts recapping it. Josh Wardle, who's the product manager behind it and just a beautiful mind, he has for like 3 years now come up with our April Fool's Day stunts. And what you saw there was this manifestation of internet, of people who were doing everything from like trying to recreate their country's flag and then maintain it as other people tried to smear it over. There was this whole Germany-France thing, which, 20th century history can be a little dicey. But it was amazing because the German flag was smearing over the French flag. I know. But But then the French flag pushed back, and then they decided to form an EU flag over the union of the two. It was beautiful. No, really, and
That is gorgeous.
and there was no guidelines, there was no instructions. It was genuinely organic as these communities came around making art collaboratively. And so there's stuff like that happens, and that's amazing. But then on the small scale, there are things that happen every day across all those communities that I don't even know about, I don't even hear about, because they're just sort of simple acts of kindness, of wonder, of just things that can actually happen now that we have a platform at this scale that breaks down so many of those borders. And we obviously still have a lot more work to do. Right now, Reddit is not even really internationalized. Almost all the content is still English. We haven't even tried to internationalize yet. We have a lot more work to do, but I'm excited to see what happens as we do.
Look forward to that coming around. And one of the things I did before our talk was that I asked the audience to fill out a little Google form with questions for you. And one of the questions is from Putra, who's the product manager at Potato Productions. And he asked, okay, so how did the Conde Nast deal come about? And why did you decide on that company? Like, what were the synergies? And how was life like after the acquisition working with them?
I see. Okay, so Conde Nast, at the time, I didn't know who they were. I got an email from their head of biz dev, and I had to Google what Conde Nast did. But then I found out they're publishers of like Wired and GQ, and these magazines, and they own newspapers, and they had some websites too. But it happened actually because like 3 months earlier, I had a cannoli with a reporter who ended up telling her boss.
I feel like there's a Godfather quote coming here.
There's, as far as I know, there is no Godfather quote. But this was also an Italian American story, I guess. We had this cannoli, and she ended up telling her boss about this company called Reddit that was really interesting, and her boss ended up telling her husband about this company Reddit that was interesting, and that guy was the head of BD for Conde Nast. And he reached out and said, look, we have this mutual friend, I heard about you, let's have a call. And he basically pitched us on doing a licensing deal. And I would learn later that this was basically a test to see if we were reasonable to work with. And we were willing to do it. And then it was clear that they wanted to do more than just this licensing deal. And we were a year into Reddit, and it seemed crazy that they wanted to buy us, and for the amount of money that they did. And we talked to a few other places. I reached out. We got really far with the Washington Post. We tried to get them in the mix, and they declined. They didn't want to pay. So they didn't want to match Conde's offer. And so Reddit could have been bought by WP&I. But instead it was Conde. And at the time, we really just thought it was going to make sense, because maybe there were going to be some synergies. Conde Nast clearly knew about how to sell a media company to advertisers. They knew the media world. It seemed like this was a really good strategic move on their part. If you look in hindsight, this was an amazing investment on their part. But we also just really didn't know a lot. We were 23, and if I were giving advice to a founder, which I've done a few times now in this situation, I would have them really, really think long and hard about it, because
So in hindsight, you wouldn't have sold it that early?
It was not the right business decision for sure, but I don't regret it, because it gave me, it changed my life. I'm grateful for it, no doubt. But yeah, objectively speaking, Reddit's the 4th most trafficked site in the US now. I think if we were more mature, and if we had if someone had just sat us down and smacked us and been like, look, there are problems you have, you can solve them, like, take this as a really strong signal you're on the right track, and keep going.
Okay, and now you're an investor. So Gary and you started a VC fund.
Gary Tan,
Yeah.
legend. Love Gary Tan.
Is he in Singapore now?
He is on a plane. He is on a plane right now. He might have Wi-Fi, so I'd like to think that if you guys are tweeting at Gary Tan, which you should, just tell him hey for me.
Say hi at Gary Tan.
Yeah, Garry, 2 R's, Tan.
Okay, cool. So how have the experiences that you've had as a founder helped you be a better investor?
I I think all of y'all, I mean, everyone here y'all have companies, right? Or you're aspiring founders, presumably. Yeah.
How many of you are aspiring
How many
founders?
are founders or aspiring founders? Okay, solid. And the rest of y'all just got tricked into coming here. Got it.
They're all probably Reddit fans.
That's awesome. Thank you for Redditing. Or I'm actually, my money is on just confused and like got tricked into being here. Like, who is this guy? The thing I will say is, you know, founders, especially once you've got some traction, especially once you've got the kind of thing investors are looking at, you get to be really picky, and that's great because a lot of investors are just dumb money or worse. And I think the biggest asset that I had was just having experience founding a company. And it seems kind of obvious, but the vast majority of VCs don't have a ton of experience. And if they do, it was from a few decades ago. And so it's not the most relevant. And, you know, game recognized game. If you are a founder who's looking for someone to help your company, I think founders today more and more so are going to look for someone who can help, who can actually help beyond just writing a check. So I think that's been my biggest asset. And then obviously the other one is just working with Gary, because he's amazing. If you don't know Gary Tan, just follow him right now on Twitter and say hi for me.
Say hello to Gary Tan.
No, Gary's the man. Seriously, everyone don't sleep on Gary.
Sounds good. And you've got a story that's about your wall of negative reinforcement.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about it, and how has that made you kinder to the people who pitch you?
So I still have a wall of negative reinforcement, which may sound weird and slightly masochistic, but
Does it still say you're a rounding error?
Yeah, it's digital now. I have it in a folder on my computer. But we had, you know, you're going to have people for sure who are going to criticize stuff you're working on. That's fine. It happens. And I've found one of the really effective ways of dealing with it is, well, before it was literally putting it on my wall next to my desk. And so a bunch of the early blog posts ripping on Reddit and comments on forums ripping on Reddit, I ended up putting on the wall. And I still do this, again, digitally. But the one that really, the crowning moment was when we got invited out to the Valley. It was our first trip to the Valley, like 5 months into Reddit, to pitch Yahoo, because an executive there had said, like, hey, come on over, we're curious about learning more. And in that meeting, he asked about our traffic. And you know, we're an early company, and I was happy to tell him, and so I told him there's a few thousand users a day, not a lot. And he looked at us, and he's just like, you guys are a rounding error compared to Yahoo.
Oh my God, that is cruel.
I know, yeah, and he was like, what are you doing here? And I was like, you invited us. Like, who? Is this a thing Yahoo does? Like, you just invite early stage startups and then just shit all over them? Like, who does that? And that meeting did not go well. Shocker. But when we got back, I put that on the wall. You were a rounding error. And I still think of this guy. I haven't seen him since. He's still in tech. And I'd love to be at a party or something and just go up to him.
So you've never run into him all this while?
Believe me, I want to, because I would thank him. I'm sure he doesn't remember it.
Well, I hope he's watching this.
I would thank him. No, he's going to watch it, and just, if he is watching this, and he should be. No, if he is watching this, he's just going to be like, man, I wonder who that idiot was. But he's not going to know it was him. I'm pretty sure. And I did take certain satisfaction in seeing Reddit pass Yahoo on Alexa for US traffic a few months ago. And I told that story to the company. And I also wanted them to realize that we still have a lot of work to do, but that we had been dismissed and slept on and everything for a long time, and will still continue to be. And that's okay, because we're actually quite all right with that. And I hope for all of you, with whatever you want to do, whether it is a startup or whether it's be an artist or whatever it is, there are going to be people who are going to try to shit all over your dreams. And please find motivation out of that, however you do it. hopefully a little bit more healthy than putting it on a wall to see every day at work. But to each his own.
But it helped you.
It did. I just hope it doesn't discourage you. I just hope it doesn't discourage you. And in best case, it'll just motivate you and fuel you. So.
Sounds good. So you're one of the earliest investors in GA, and you've also invested in our opportunity fund. Could you tell us why you decided to invest in education?
Yes. Well, okay. General Assembly as a business was a no-brainer because of the tidal shift in education that was happening. Where we have, and this is the case, so for those of you not familiar with education in the US, we've managed to convince the majority of the population that they should take on absurd amounts of student loan debt in order to get a piece of paper that may or may not actually get them a job. And it's tragic because it's the best, oftentimes it's with the best of intentions, but it's encumbered an entire generation with a lot of debt that you can't even get out of, BT dub. And obviously higher ed in the States is absurdly expensive. So it's a problem. There has to be a sea change there. And technology, especially learning how to code, is like the new literacy. And so when the GA founders said, look, we're teaching the new literacy, it's gonna be affordable, it's not gonna be accredited, but you will be able to get a job. So you won't get a piece of paper, but you'll get a job.
That's important.
That was really compelling, and so it obviously made sense. It just made sense from a societal standpoint and a business standpoint, and so it's been exciting watching it grow because not just within the U.S. but internationally, there is. I have seen firsthand what software can do for someone who has access and the skills to make the most out of it, and we've never seen a time quite like this where, I mean, I can look any one of you in the eye and say that you are capable of building a multi-billion-dollar company starting with a laptop, an internet connection, and your brain. Like, in the industrial age, right, and actually, well, I mean, Singapore is such an amazing example of rapid change and innovation. You know, the industrial age required factories and labor and money to get started, and in the internet age, the fact you don't have to open a factory, you just have to open a laptop, is really, really powerful. And I would love for more people to at least be exposed to it. Even if they decide, like, no, it's not for me, I would much rather they be exposed to it.
And what are some of the problems that you wish that people would solve that you would like to invest in?
Oh, man. Wow. All of the things... It's tricky because I know do y'all watch Silicon Valley on HBO?
Yeah.
Such a good show.
The hot dog app?
Such a good show. Wait, is that a recent episode?
So basically, I think they released this thing that shows you whether your food is a hot dog or not, and it's meant to create buzz for the new season of the show or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I want to try this out. Okay. So that's a perfect example. Silicon Valley does a very good job making fun of Silicon Valley, which is appropriate. It's very appropriate. And I know every founder there, everyone talks about, hey, we're inventing the future, we're changing the world, and it's absurd. And rightly so. We should laugh at that. All that said, that's exactly the stuff that really, really impresses me, and I think all of us, right? I mean, Elon Musk is the obvious example, but I think the more that we are willing to go after some of those really massive, big, scary problems, the more we're going to inspire, and the more likely someone's actually going to solve it. And for every $400 juice machine, I mean, that was so dumb. What, the Juicero? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I know, Google it. It's ridiculous. For every one of those, there's probably 100 of them, maybe 1,000. But there's one that is actually, autonomous cars. I mean, we invested in Cruise, which was acquired by General Motors. And we invested in that thing 4 years ago, maybe 5. And we thought it was going to be like a research project. We really thought, we knew Kyle from way back in the day, one of the founders. We thought, they're a smart team, but I mean, autonomous cars, it's going to take a minute. Like, good luck, guys, but here you go. And, last year acquired by General Motors for $1 billion, and the self-driving car race is very much on. And it just takes a little bit of that inertia to now, I mean, we're seeing 4 or 5 companies in the States alone who are vying to try to be the first to market. And then we're seeing a place like Singapore where, I mean, y'all can actually pull something like that off. Like if I were to put money on which states or cities, whatever, locales, we're going to be the first to have that fleet. I mean, y'all are at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think we launched it just before Uber did. There was a company here called Autonomy that did driverless cars on public roads.
Yeah.
So it would be a great country for that.
And it is like, it's crazy. And that's the stuff that gives me hope when I see the $400 juice machines. And so look, and if those of you who are working on $400 juice machines, that's fine. I get it. You want to pay the bills. But there's this amazing opportunity, and it's for all of the challenges and all the problems we have in this world. Software is obviously not the magic wand, but can be such a way to scale solutions that I hope y'all will take up the challenge.
Thank you. So I've got just a few more minutes with you. So this is going to be a rapid fire round.
Okay.
I'm going to say something and you're going to say the first things that come to mind, okay?
Okay, durian.
Have you actually eaten it?
Of course. This is where I first had durian. And I know it smells a little bad, but it's delicious. John, you're going to try some. You've never had it before. It's my boy John. He knows. Oh, yeah. A lot of durian fans in this crowd.
I think that's us accepting you as an honorary Singaporean for
know
liking
what's-
durian.
Here's the only problem, though, is you can't bring them on a bus.
You can't even bring them on trains or anything.
Yeah, you can't. No
No.
durian. They don't smell
Okay,
good.
so-
They taste good, though, John. You're gonna
Favorite movie and why?
like it. Aliens. Because I must have watched it like 1,000 times as a kid. It's a great film.
Okay, favorite book and why?
Wow, do I not read?
You read a lot of Reddit?
I'm trying to think. I spent a lot of time
So
reading
Alexis
Reddit.
has a book?
Oh, Animal Farm. I'm not going to say my own book without their permission. A national bestseller. No, Animal Farm. That's a good book.
Okay, so 3 people that you would invite out to dinner, and what would you ask them? They can be alive, dead, or fictional.
Okay, got to have Warren Buffett at the table.
What are you going
I
to ask
see
him?
Omaha. I'd just be like, what's up, Warren? I'd ask him if he uses Reddit. He would say no. And then I just want to talk to him about life and bridge and investing.
Okay, second person?
Wow. Alive or dead?
Or fictional?
Thomas Jefferson. Because I'd be like, what's up, TJ? Like, you were a really complicated dude, weren't you? Founding father of the states, Declaration of Independence, but not for everybody. Slave owner, what's up, dude? And then, what? It's true, Tom. It's just like, how? But okay. I mean, but also founding father of the U.S. Oh, and Lee Kuan Yew. What's up?
Aw, that's sweet.
Huh.
Okay, cool.
No, but seriously, the Singapore Miracle is like, I mean, I got asked a lot after SOPA PIPA, which were these awful laws that we defeated in the States, about running for office. And I was like, nope, don't ever want to do it. Because I don't feel like you could make much of an impact doing that. But then you look at, and it requires the right environment, right? But what Lee Kuan Yew was able to do here as a leader, and that's the dream, right? You kind of hope to be able to create something like that, and the legacy obviously is going to live on for a while. So yeah, no, I too mean that.
Sounds good. So this is from your college application from way back when. So in your resume, and I quote, that you'd put your objective as to get an undergraduate degree and pursue a career in medicine. Have you ever wondered about, being a doctor?
I would have been a terrible doctor. I think actually I would have been an okay doctor. Do you think I would have been an okay doctor? I'm asking Lizzie and John.
Wait,
They're
we wouldn't
friends.
have read
And then
it.
I was going to be a lawyer. Yeah, well, okay. So I was the kid who I think like a lot of people applied to college thinking I was a doctor, and then a week into my chemistry class, dropped it and realized I wasn't going to be a doctor. And then I was going to be a CS major. And then I met Steve, and then I was like, nope, I'm just going to take classes for fun in CS. And then I majored in history and business. But as a history major, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I walked out of an LSAT on like a Saturday morning, the test you have to take in order to be a lawyer. I walked out of it within about 30 minutes and went and got a waffle from Waffle House. I don't think Waffle Houses are in Singapore.
No, we don't have waffles.
They're amazing. They're amazing. 24 hours, delicious, it's affordable. You go, I went in the middle of the day, which is a weird time to go to a Waffle House. You want to go at like 3 in the morning because the clientele, it's very entertaining. But waffles changed my life. This was a speed round.
You're taking longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah,
I need to
my
cut you
bad.
off now.
Okay.
So do you have a morning or a nightly routine that you follow?
I try to every morning, and well, every night for sure, and usually every morning I'm in a long distance relationship, so I try to call up or FaceTime my fiance.
Oh,
It's important.
it's like a collective awe from the
Especially
audience.
with long distance, you really got to put in the work, so it's
Okay,
worth
top 3 life moments.
it. Calling my mom and telling her we had sold Reddit. Finding out I was going to be a dad.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And oh man, oh yeah, proposing. That was a good one too. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
Lizzie, like
Thank you,
sitting over
Lizzie.
there, she had to like show her ring.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I'm definitely not engaged to Lizzie.
Have you ever played
let me make
tennis
that very
against your
clear.
fiance?
No, I don't. I've never picked up a racket.
Okay, cool. So we're almost at the end of this. Do you have any last words that you want to say to our audience in Singapore before we close off?
Thank you so much.
That was short and sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alexis.
Oh, thank you.